So hello and welcome to our show, The Awakening, here on WGSN-DB, the Going Bold and Going Solo Network. The information and opinions expressed on the show are just that, the opinions of the individual speaking based on their individual personal experiences. They are not intended to diagnose and do not constitute professional advice or recommendations. So you know the pain, the stress, and the struggle that divorcing men and women go through? Well, there is a way to find peace, keep your sanity, and assist the lawyer in the process, saving you thousands of dollars as you move through the process. My name's Tina Huggins. I'm your divorce coach specialist, divorce planning specialist, restorative family mediator, and conflictual co-parenting coach. And I don't often talk about my certification, but I'm a certified CDC divorce coach. And as we get ready to talk to our wonderful guest speaker, Katrina Reese, we're going to find out that she also comes with a similar background. So Katrina Newton, well, that's what was on the paperwork. So it's Katrina Reese. Katrina is a CDC certified divorce coach as well, but she's also a licensed social worker and a trauma specialist with nearly 20 years of experience helping women navigate the challenges of high conflict divorce with deep expertise in trauma, narcissistic abuse, and complex family dynamics. She empowers her clients to move through the legal, financial, and emotional struggles of divorce with clarity, confidence, and resilience. Taking a holistic approach and navigate the approach with Katrina, utilizing evidence-based practices, including EMDR, parts work, and somatic techniques to help clients regulate their nervous system, release the impact of trauma, and reconnect with their inner strength. Katrina's mission is to help women not just survive divorce, but emerge from it stronger and ready to create a life more beautiful than they could ever imagine. So welcome, Katrina.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, and we talked just briefly before we came on about, how what my process was and the fact that I focus my work on men. And it's not that I don't work with women, but I love when I get to talk with somebody who focuses their work on women because it makes me feel like I'm in a good, safe space. But I want our viewers to realize that the conversation that Katrina and I are having, although we may be talking about the women because she deals with more women than she deals with men, but men go through abuse just in the same way we women do. And it is mentioned that 1 in every 3 women are abused. And now we're kind of talking about the physical aspect, but 1 in every 4 men are abused. And men report way less often. Like my dad never reported his abuse. And the last time I picked him up out of the hospital after she ran over him with a dually pickup truck. So we go through all of this stuff. But Katrina, so in understanding and remembering our conversation from before and everything, in order to get us to where we're at in this type of work, we usually have our own traumatic experience. So are you willing and able to talk about your experience?
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. So I have actually seen both sides of the coin. The woman as the high conflict narcissistic part as well as the man. So I really have a perspective of both. And in my first marriage and recognizing later that he was that high conflict personality, narcissistic personality, I was introduced to it because his ex-wife is also. So they were these two high conflict narcissists going back and forth, trying to co-parent a child together. And then I was, the new wife eventually that came into that dynamic, dealing with all of that. And so she presented stronger, which I think allowed a lot of it to not be to be distracted by some of that. So really understanding that. And I was in that relationship for 13 years, managing the craziness and emotional turmoil and trying to control and heal and be a hero in the situation, and really not recognizing how I was contributing to all that, honestly, as well. And the best act that I could do was to see my way out of that dynamic. And so now having to deal and go through divorce with high conflict narcissistic personality has been its own journey. And now I'm also married, remarried to this amazing man of finding happiness after all of that. But what's so fascinating is one of his children's mothers, high conflict narcissistic. And so we really have this amazing relationship, but really can understand each other because we're dealing this co-parenting with these narcissistic personalities. And so I've been dealing with this in my personal life for a long time, but I also have been such an advocate for children and seeing how the dynamics of families are impacting children. And so in my professional career, I've really taken, instead of focusing on the work with the children as much, is recognizing if I could work with the families that were causing some of these dynamics, I could really help support the children a lot more. And so I've always taken on the cases that nobody has wanted, the therapists that have thrown up their hands saying that this is way too high conflict. Those are usually the cases that come to me, that I really, my personality being from New York, as well as, my longitudinal seasoned experience of working with that, doesn't scare me. Court doesn't scare me, and really can advocate for the children the best, and also know how to deal with, supporting the women who, in a lot of my cases, have been the victim, dealing with this narcissistic guy, and how I can support, but also how I can work with that, in some ways, the family dynamic of that dad, to try to see how he's affecting the kids. So I've done this for a really long time. My passion really is with the women, as I work with men as well. But I think one of my biggest passions is women not recognizing how, even if they're right, they're the victim of the situation. I see all these women getting these patterns where their nervous system has become so out of control. They are so overwhelmed, and it shifts people's view of them to look unstable, or not recognizing how they're being part of this dynamic of participating in this back and forth, and that they actually can really become just like, and joining in the high conflict, just as high conflict as well. And so even though it initially has started where they were the victim, or enduring this in the relationship, that they actually don't see how they've become a really detrimental part of the process. And so really wanting to work with them, as I had to do my own work to recognize and take accountability for the part I played in that as well.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. You and I are very parallel on some of the stuff that we've been through and why we're here, and the clients
Yeah.
that we take on.
Yeah.
I know I go into a lot of divorce meetings, and people are like, yeah, I want the amicable divorce and da-da-da. And I'm like, well, when it comes to me, it's like, I will take all the clients that none of you want to deal with because they need help too,
Yeah. Yeah, and
And
it really is a special skill set. The skill set, if you get the wrong practitioner to work with these people, it will actually make their case so much worse. And so you really have to find the right match, because how I would support someone, which again, I do support people through overall amicable divorces as well, but the advice and the recommendations and the guidance that I'm going to give them is just going to be completely different based on the assessment of that case.
yeah, and those are easy cases for you and I to take on because those are done way quicker and there's
Yeah.
just no conflict or less conflict.
Yeah.
But going back into talking about I guess it was your first marriage where
Yeah.
you were a part
Yeah.
of that conflict and didn't even realize. I was that in my late husband's divorce early on. I was taking part and I would get so angry, same reason he'd get so angry, and we'd fight with the attorney. And the attorney was not the right person. Like you mentioned just a little bit ago, it's important to find the right person to deal with when you're going through the high conflict. Well, the attorney is also another one that has to be the right person.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in here way longer than you should be.
100%. And finding an attorney, and I don't think that's part of my passion behind the scenes of the work that I do, is really working with attorneys legally, the guardian litems. I'm an active part of the AFCC, and actually working to do some presentations with them to educate them on being trauma informed. Because again, the damage that these attorneys are doing, and the law is doing, of forcing these people, like, try to mediate together, or giving recommendations that honestly is putting people back in abusive situations, or again is just the client feeling like with attorneys they have to prove, and so the attorney has to has spend a year or whatever seeing this dynamic to be like, oh, you're right. Yeah, this is different here. And in the meantime, so much damage and their case has been destroyed. And it's really sad. And so again, wanting attorneys to unintentionally recognize there is this level of training that they need to be aware of to understand the difference of even high conflict, that they like to call it, versus, I'm working for them to understand the coercive control and abuse of post-separation that is actually happening here. This is different than just simply high conflict.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure have the same kind of people that come to you and say, "Oh, I'm divorcing a narcissist. I'm divorcing a narcissist."
Yeah.
And so I work with them one, maybe two times, 2 weeks in a row, and by then I know we're not dealing with a narcissist.
Of
They can be narcissistic, which all of us can be narcissistic, but
course.
when we're dealing with true high
Yeah.
conflict, usually, especially when the word narcissist or narcissistic is involved, because we can't diagnose, you come closer to diagnosing people than, um, but they don't realize that now, thinking they're divorcing a
Yeah.
narcissist, they are throwing fuel on a fire that barely has a spark.
Mhm.
And now we've got a bonfire going. And so technically now this client, my client, has created the conflict when the other person is responding,
Yeah.
just like you did in your first relationship, responding to that attack or the situation. When you respond, you become a high conflict individual as well.
Yeah.
So we have to figure out one who is the problem child,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
helping our client understand how to de-escalate that.
100%. 100%. And again, if it doesn't matter whether, again, if you have it or not, you wouldn't go and say, you're depressed or you're, schizophrenic, right? Like, if we're using that label as a name calling, right? Like, that's unproductive. If you're having a side conversation and you're using it as shorthand, but I always follow up when they try to say that, is describe what that looks like. Like, what are the behaviors that you're seeing that has this? Because again, like you're saying, you're trying to sort out, because both people are calling each other a narcissist. Or
Right.
every time they don't agree with you, does it make them a narcissist, right? Like, they also, sometimes there's some really controlling people that they think if the person just doesn't do what they want to do, we're calling people narcissists. So we really got to get away from that, and educating people that in the court, you're going to lose your case. The second you start using the word narcissist, the judge now has ruled against you, right? And so there's this level of education, right? Like, high conflict is the more appropriate term, but overall, we got to describe these behaviors, and the biggest thing I'm going to work with is I got to help get your nervous system under control, because you're looking is not a credible source to your attorneys, to your friends, to anyone, in trying to prove all of this. You're kind of, not being credible, we'll say kindly. And so
Right.
we've got to calm this down. And I think that what the hard part is is you can't say to somebody, calm down, right? So even when I first went, to my attorney, and I was this emotionally, terrified, because you're afraid, you're terrified,
Right.
rightfully so. And you're saying all of these things, and they're just saying you need to calm down and relax. And that doesn't do anything, and it feels very invalidating, or you're just letting your fear get in the way. And it's like, exactly. Like, but I wish that I had the right support to say, how do I do that, right? Like, how can I help this? And I found that work on my own to be able to calm my nervous system down so I could go back and make good decisions with the lawyer. But I think we've got to help calm all of that down, because we got to turn that logic side of the brain back on. We're making life changing situations here, and we can't do that in an emotional state because we don't make good decisions. And
Right.
so there's so many decisions that need to be made really quickly, and we do want to make safe decisions. And there's this pressure that I see people have to get it done, right? Like, I can't move on. You think like you're holding your breath until it's all done. So we have to rework a lot of people of like, this is a marathon instead of a sprint. Um, and the time doesn't really matter. You can be living your life and all of this going on while this is still in play. I mean, I still have an open case 4+ years later of things that are still not done, because
Right.
that's what the narcissist, like, that's the goal, right? I'm going to be as high conflict to make this. My life hasn't been put on hold for that. It's just going on in the background. It's very, it's not controlling anything, but you can live your life with all of this going on. So we got to help people be able to come up for air a little bit, reground, re-anchor the body.
Yeah, and that's super important because, like you said before, we're making decisions, and if we don't have our head about ourselves
Yeah.
and we're making decisions, these decisions are going to affect us possibly for the rest of your life. And
Mhm.
I was there. I got divorced 22 years ago, and I made every wrong decision that you could possibly make. I
Mhm.
left with pretty much the clothes on my back, a few pieces of furniture, credit card debt, my car, and I left.
Yeah.
And he ended up with 40 acres, a few vehicles. He's got my family's heirloom type
Mhm.
things. We've got an heirloom saddle that I can't get back
Yeah.
because not that he'll ever write it, not that he
Yeah.
was even a writer. He
Yeah.
just won't give it back because that's his
Right.
way of somewhat
Right.
controlling things in the
Right.
background.
Right. Yeah. I have a very similar story. And I think the hardest part is, you know, there's like what you deserve, right? And in the beginning, you're so, you know, fighting for what's right or what you feel like you deserve. I have a similar situation where I was, gifted money for our house, for given money that when a family member was going to pass to go towards this house. And it was always agreed upon that if anything happened, like, this house was mine, it was bought with um money from my family. It was a verbal agreement. And knowing, and the second that it was a beautiful house on the lake, and then once I left, and the narcissist, that ego bruise, why would he give up a lake house, right? I'm gonna have this. I got this in a wonderful period, right? And so you get so lost in like, I want the house, right? Especially for women, the passion of like, I want the house is something we fight over so much. And, I wouldn't even want the house now, right? Like, it doesn't matter. And you get so lost in even the money and things like that. And it can just drive you crazy. And you have to get to this point of, again, you have to calm first before you can, get here. But like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm going to rebuild, and I'm going to create a better life. I'm going to make it all back and more, and have happiness. Like, if what you need to get is mine to be able to go on, like, again, that's the evidence of what you're choosing to leave behind, because like, I matter more. And it's a hard pill to swallow, I think, for a lot of us, or even being able to leave and like your kids being confused and like being the bad guy, or, and all of those situations that women especially can be viewed in as having to make hard things, but like not needing to explain all of that, like being able to just do the hard things because you need peace, you need to model respect for yourself, you need to model that for your children, all the other stuff, the house, the things, you can replace all of that. And so it just doesn't matter. You got to figure out what matters. And that's, if you've got kids, you got yourself, everything else can come back together.
Right. I was going over some training tapes, and we're talking about, mindset, how you look at things. And so they were talking about the houses that burned down in California, and they went to this first house, and this guy is just him and his wife, and they are just crying and crying. They've lost everything they've ever owned. Everything is in this house, and they have nothing, and they're just wasted because they can't see from underneath the rubble of their house. And then just up the street they go, and somebody else's has actually, their house is burned down. You can't see any of their stuff. It is literally all ashes. And they asked them how they were faring. They said, this is all stuff. It's just stuff. I've got the kids, I've got my spouse, we are safe. We are a happy, safe family. It is how we view things. And I will tell the clients right away after they get in and they spend some time and they're really wanting the house part. I say, really? Do you want the house that you guys fought in? Do you want those memories of every time you walk into that room that you can just hear him or see him or her
Right.
throwing
Right.
something or yelling at you? And they're
Right.
like, oh my gosh, I never thought of that.
Right. Right. How cool that you can start over. You can choose anything that you want. You can choose a new area. You can choose a new style. You can, at fresh start. There's no, because there is emotion tied to all of that. And you can drive back and you don't control it. Your body just does something. And so to have a fresh start, be able to make everything, it's fun. Like you can really look at it as, how would I do it differently? How could I start over? And it can be a really fun process if you choose to enjoy it. It can be very humbling to be like, I have nothing. Like it is a scary place to be like, we are starting over from ground zero. But I think this is where the magic is. When it's all burnt down, you get to choose how to restart. You get to choose like your reckoning and who you want to become. And are you going to be a victim and you're going to be the sad, bitter person because of all this? And you're 10 years, 20 years in still talking about your ex is an asshole and divorce ruined your life. And I see a lot of women there. And all I can be is, I've done the work and recreated it. I think every day, oh my gosh, thank God. Like I love my life. It is so beautiful. And it's not luck. It's living life with intention. It's deciding what you want, who you want around you, what your energy is. And it's one decision at a time that you get to create and make anything you want. And it's empowering, it's liberating. And then it's like looking back and like giving yourself this full credit for like this badass that's within you that you like never knew that was there. And you have no one to give credit to but yourself for doing all of that work. And it's the most amazing, it's the hardest thing. And when you ask the majority of women or people, I think, it's the hardest thing you ever go through. It's harder than you ever think. And I would not wait to do it again. I wish I did it sooner. Like best decision I've ever made. And I think it's just like having kids. It's the hardest thing you ever do, and it can be the greatest blessing that you have to do. You can't kind of describe it until you've gone through that journey. But it's mindset and it is intention. It is very wisely choosing intentionally how you're going to do that and doing the work, because unconsciously you'll just repeat those patterns if you don't. You will just find the same type of person and keep going down that drain. You have to work with somebody and gain that awareness and gain that accountability of what part you played in all of this to be able to intentionally, even though the urge feels this, I'm going to do the opposite and start making some different choices because I see where this road already led me. I don't want that again. This sucks. I always would say to myself, this sucks so bad. I never want to have to learn this lesson again. I want to learn this lesson so clearly because I believe the universe will keep giving you the same examples until you truly have kind of like passed the level. And so it's like, I want to learn this so we can move on with our next life accomplishment that we're meant to get while we're here on this earth.
Yeah, the next chapter of our
Yeah.
life. There, as you were talking, I'm just picturing all these clients that I've had, and one of the clients, moved out of the house, and they took the furniture, and what they did, this was a female client, and she took all the furniture, and she says, I don't want to have anything to do with him and the abuse. She spray painted her furniture to look like what she wanted to. That was just something that she did, and recreated a whole new look for herself in her rental apartment. And then, like in my case, we talked about this briefly, but I lost my perfect for me husband a year ago, and I've had to move. And so when he and I got together, it was pirate. Everything was pirate. So we created our house, based it on pirate theme. That was our wedding, blah, blah, blah. And then when I moved over here, I wanted to go back to some original parts of me, some of the things that were just me and didn't attach to anybody else in my life. So I went into the witchy background where I came from as a teenage girl, and then into my early parts of my life. And so I've got some very moody grays, as you can see here. And I kept all the pirate stuff, and I have a wall that is dedicated to our wedding. And the colors, I kind of tweaked my colors differently and just put things in a different place so that it was different. Just like people looking for a new house, a new chapter in their lives can do.
And I love that. I love hearing that from you and your other example of the client. Like people's ability, it's not replicating what someone else did. It's getting back in touch with yourself and that creativity. These parts like when I talk to all these people about like how you heal, and some people have started a podcast, and some people have traveled, and some people, right, the creativity that comes out, I think of when we're just like in such a desperate place for healing of pain, we're able to get back to that true essence in ourselves. And so we get to get so creative of what healing looks like. And so again, it's not telling anybody to listen and copy what my healing was or what your healing was, and how you healed in one thing isn't the same way you'll heal in another thing. It's just getting really quiet within yourself and doing the work to start listening and making movements of like what feels right for you. And it's so authentic and it's so beautiful.
And I think when we need to get back to who we are,
Yeah.
not the person that was so, like you remember from your first divorce, that frantic person that was adding to that conflict. We don't want to be that person.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be, once I realized that's who I was with my late husband in his early or later stages of his marriage, his divorce. I realized that's just not who I wanted to be. That's not the authentic me. And that happens to all of us when we're in the middle of that chaos and just that emotional hold that it has on us. So once we're there, now we get to look back and we get to see, oh, I didn't like me there. I didn't like how I acted. I didn't like that I added to that. I didn't like that I even had emotions of negativity towards his ex-wife. Not that I think she is as anything good at all, because I don't. But it's a point where if we can let go of that, they no longer have any control of us.
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting, right? Because again, I've been, the universe is like, all right, let's see how you do this time around. And so the ability that I fell in love with this guy that also has this high conflict ex, but what's so fascinating to me is everything that I've done has been so different. I was so wrapped up in trying to mitigate the conflict and like, I'll say it in a nicer way because you don't know how to say it without antagonizing her, and I can say it really nice, and so I'll type the messages back, or I'll take over the parenting because you can't handle, and trying to like wedge myself. And I have such good boundaries that like none of that is my business. And what I learned is like if I don't like the person and I don't respect how they're dealing with that relationship, which I didn't there, which is why I felt like I had to inter see that. Now I picked a partner that I trust and I respect, and he wouldn't be a good partner if I didn't allow that. So that's none of my business, right? That's just none. She doesn't bother me. There's a block. I don't allow any of that in. And I have a partner that has also done the work and has fantastic boundaries. Again, you're going to have stuff happens, but we have the same values about how we choose to deal with it. And it's so fascinating because this new one is more kooky and, uh, dangerous, honestly, than even the other one. But like when you create these boundaries, you don't let them in, and they can't get to you. You're not worrying about what people are saying or what they think, or trying to control all of these situations, because when you've lost complete control of everything, you have to say, and you were okay. Actually, when you finally let go and you just allowed whatever to happen, for me and for so many clients, I realized that's when things actually started settling down. So I was so exhausted trying to control and manage. And I see women as like these managers, and they think it's their job, but it's actually them having poor boundaries. Our job is to control me. And if you don't like, or that person needs to be controlled because you don't like how they're responding, the signal there isn't you need to jump in and control them. The signal is they shouldn't be in your life. I'm only going to have people in my life that are demonstrating, healthy behaviors. And if they can't act like an adult, then I should really put up a boundary and not allow them in. Right. And so like it's this fascinating twist of like going through the same thing or what could be worse. And so fascinating how none of that permeates into our home anymore. And the power that you get is when you stop actually feeding the source. And this is again, what you don't believe is they get bored with you. And the ability for both of our exes over time, as we've done this, it has in a lot of ways gotten so much better because we're not feeding their fire. And so they've gone somewhere else. They don't have any access to us. I don't control anything with my kids that's happening over there. You're over there. There's nothing I can do about it. I can't control a lot of it. I'm always going to love you. You can talk to me, but I don't micromanage anything that happens over there. I don't pay attention to it. I don't see it. That's your relationship with your dad. That will always be your dad. That is between you guys to do. My job is to handle what happens here. And so I also see like, but I'm the mom. It does matter what's happening with my kids there. You can't do anything about it. The court doesn't care if they eat spaghetti every day, 3 times a day. You're not going to change custody because of that. They're not going to change custody because you don't have a booster seat at 6 years old. They don't consider that the amount of things when you understand what the court actually cares about and what they don't, there's no point. If you're going to argue something that the court isn't going to be on your side and say, you're right, that's abuse, which the court doesn't, it's way too lenient of the things that they don't understand is abusive, there's nothing you can do. And so your only choice is to say, I'm going to be a safe place for my kids here. I'm going to be calm. I'm going to display what a healthy marriage and relationship looks like. I'm always going to love you. I'm going to listen, right? I'm going to get you support, and I'm going to get you a therapist and whatever tools you need to help support you through all of this. But really, like, they get to have their own relationship over there. And again, that helps me. I just deal with what's here. I deal with only what I can control. If I can't control it, there's some hard things like I want my kids in, there was a period, my daughter wanted to do gymnastics forever. Well, I couldn't get, dad to bring her on her weeks. Okay, well, it is what it is. Either A, I pay for it and she only goes 50% of the time, or she doesn't do it. And guess what? She's not going to be destroyed because she doesn't do gymnastics. So I have to get creative about it. She does gymnastics on summer, in the summer on my weeks versus all year. We do programs at home. We do, you get creative versus my kid is going to be destroyed because they can't do this extracurricular. I could allow that. I could work up a whole argument for that. Or you say, what they need is their parents not to be at conflict, to not be, undermining and condescending about their dad underneath their breath, and be like, okay, it is what it is. Let's work with what we got here. And you work on your problem solving, and you work on recognizing what actually matters and what doesn't.
Right, right. And, kind of taking this over into the de-traumatizing side of your work. So that, you're talking, and we've been talking about everything that raises our temper and our fear and all those emotions. We've got to slow our breathing down. We've got to release what our body's holding. This gets a little woo-woo at this point, but like I had a conversation with a client this morning. I'm like, so let me explain to you how this works. It's like getting in a car accident. You're holding onto the steering wheel and the car hits you. You see it coming and you do this trick.
Yeah.
And so then your hands hurt for a
Yeah.
long, long time
Yeah.
because you're thinking it's because the dash in your hands hit. No, you just held on so tight and locked that memory into the muscles, tendons, and ligaments in your hands.
Yeah.
And you're going to have headaches, not because your head hit the windshield, because you went like this and you locked everything in. This is a little woo-woo, but it's locked in. And if you don't
Yeah.
release it, it's
Yeah.
going to cause problems with your emotional self, your
Yeah.
regulation, your thinking, and down the road, your health, possible cancer, or other ailments that can cost your life.
100%. And I think it's like, it's not, this is where you don't talk, it's where you just show up, right? And so when I showed up, and initially I worked with a coach, and she's just like, don't say do this breathing, do meditation at home. We're doing it every single time. She's just doing it. And that's what I do with my clients. Can we do this? And sometimes it's 5 or 10 minutes in the session. Sometimes it's the whole session of this different work. Also combining that with EMDR, which is my passion, which gets in the body and releases the body from the story. And you know what? The level of emotion that I was at, that's why I'm like the biggest salesperson. I always believed in it. I saw miraculous things happen with my clients. And I had done it for other things, but I was like, I knew logically, right? Like I want to be, I know what's going to be detrimental to my kids. I want to be a good, healthy parent. And I have so much anger and pain and betrayal and hatred for this person that has abused me for so long. I don't know how to get over here. And being able to do that EMDR, and like I'm the biggest like salesperson for it, because like it's not that you forget. It just doesn't matter. Like I'm not there anymore. And it has released it from my body, where I don't even get worked up saying about this. I don't feel the need to talk about this. I don't talk about it in my life. Like I just don't care. And it lets go of that emotion and helps me deal with what I need to deal with in front of me. And I can do that with so much peace. That's the body work that you have to do. And you can't, I don't think you can, I don't know if you can do a lot of it alone. I think the idea of having someone help you through this, and to not do this really scary. I mean, emotions are scary. My clients sit in front of me and they're scared to do the work. They're scared to have these really big feelings come up. And so to have this partner with you, that one is there for you, but there's also techniques. You don't have to just go terrible. We can de-escalate it. We can calm the body back down. And so my clients are gaining trust with themselves, trust with another person, trust with the process, that these feelings aren't so scary. And when we let them go, they're like, okay, that is hard, but I see like the beauty of the aftermath of like why it's worth it. Right. And so it motivates you when something comes up again to know to do this work. And there's so many different ways to do body work. I mean, yoga and somatic work and, movement and dance and art and EMDR and biofeedback. Like there's so many ways. There's not just one way to do this body work. And it's finding, really like what you're drawn to, what you like. Um, And I think just really not telling our clients, but like, no, I'm going to do this with you. Like, let me start here. And you just show up and because we can know to do these things, even if you know, like journal or, take deep breaths. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's not that I don't know to do it. I won't on my own for whatever reason. Life gets too busy. But when you're paying to show up every hour, once a week or twice a week, or however many times that you're doing it, and you're just practicing doing the work, I couldn't believe how fast I got my own results. And like, this had kept me hostage for how many, 13, 15 years. And I'm already to this point this quickly. And this quickly meaning like in way less than a year, 6 months, I'm already like life changing, a different person. And so it's the closest things I tell my clients to being a magic wand to like, I want to do this and I can't. I call it the invisible obstacle, right? Our feelings are holding us hostage, that this thing that we know we should do or we want to do, or this behavior, we can't. And EMDR and this body work, when you release this old stuff, you don't have to then think about a skill. You just know. You just have this new wisdom and clarity of knowing the next thing that you need to do.
Definitely, definitely. As we get ready to come to the close of this, Katrina, I want our viewers to understand how to get a hold of you. And so I know all of your information will be on the show notes below this video, but can you tell people how they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, I think the best way is to find me on my website at empoweringdivorcecoaching.com. There's a way that you can work with me, send me a message. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook, LinkedIn, Katrina Newton. So Newton is my new married name. Reese is professionally what I've used for, almost 20 years now. And so kind of blending the two together still. So you'll find me a lot at Reese, that same person, right? Newton is my new married name. And so you'll find me the divorce coach and Katrina Newton on social media platforms as well. But my website's the greatest way to kind of see all these different avenues, how I work with parenting plans, the different stages of divorce, and you can reach out with me and get something set up to do this work.
So very good. So just so that our viewers know, I'm a certified divorce coach, just as Katrina is. This means that we are trained in the complexities of divorce. It's not that we've just been through it and we think we know what we're doing about. We've actually gone through extensive training. And believe me, the CDC is an extensive training course. So in my case, not only have I been trained in the CDC and the complexities of divorce, I've experienced broken bones, separated ribs, dislocated leg. My father, I pulled out of the hospital because he was almost murdered in his second relationship. And I talked about my late husband. He had gone through torture. So I've seen, experienced, and I understand the divorce. You can reach me through my email at coachtinalyn@gmail.com. That's CoachTinalynn@gmail. And then my website is divorcecoachspecialist.com. You can also reach me on social media, on Facebook under Tina Lynn Huggins, that's Huggins, LinkedIn under Tina Huggins, on Instagram under Divorce Coach Tina Lynn, and TikTok under Divorce Tina. So can you give our viewers, Katrina, a last little bit of advice?
I think one of the biggest advices is to work with a divorce coach. I think it's recognizing that, and people think that they only need an attorney as part of the process, and I think that's the biggest mistake people make, and they don't have realistic expectations of what the attorney is there to do. They don't have the time to hold your hand, to explain, and they don't know your individual family of what's best for you. They're not going to say what you should do. You need to do already that work with a divorce coach that can really help you sort through it. Take the time, hold your hand emotionally, help you emotionally when you need it, get you through the business of divorce, not telling you what you should do, but helping you with systems and protocols that we have to help you when you're stuck in those processes. So having a whole team, knowing that there's also certified divorce financial analysts that can help you with the money portion, right? We need these different members of the team. And some people are afraid that it's actually gonna, you know, how do I afford all this? I can't even afford an attorney. It will actually save you so much money.
So yeah, I'm going to echo what Katrina says there. As coming in from watching people and going through divorce, one of my clients, we because of how long his divorce took and how much money, $5,000 a month.
Yeah.
He ended up spending over $300,000 on his divorce. And we were able to track paying me, paying his new attorney, which I helped him find the right attorney for the right situation, and dealing with another professional that we had to have on the team. I still saved him $100,000.
Yeah.
And he was paying all of us at the same
Yeah.
time. But instead of just paying the attorney to do everything, no, the attorney's not trained like a divorce coach is trained and
Right.
like a CDFA is trained. So having the right people on there. So I echo what you have to say. So many people, including myself, get to a point during our divorce where suicidal ideation is something we think about. I don't want you to be there. I don't want you to think that that's the way out, because it's not. You're leaving people who love you. You are making a worse life for the people in your life who love you. So if you are there, please call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. It is 988, real simple, 988. It's the same in Canada as it is here in the US. Make sure that you talk to somebody that can help you. And if you're in the Netherlands, that number is 113. Get somebody, talk to somebody, help them, let them help you off the ledge. Also, if you are needing the police right now, if you are being beat, if you're needing assistance, call 911 here in the US. Get the police there. It's 999 in the Netherlands and 112 if you're in the UK. Plus, press charges, keep those charges in place. This is your key out of that abuse. Once you drop the charges, what happens after you drop the charges is generally much worse than what you had dealt with before you drop those charges. It's your key out. Follow it. So also, if you or somebody you know is dealing with domestic violence, please call a domestic violence hotline at 800-799-7233. That number again is 799-7233. So I just ask that you please like, comment, and share so that this information can help others. Thank you so much, Katrina, for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It was a great conversation.
Great. And we will talk soon. Thanks.
Bye.